Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. It's your host, Fancy Urchin, today. I'm wearing like the one button-up shirt that I've got. It's nice. I think I got it at Target like 6 years ago. Today we have the first tier list for the channel. I wanted to do a tier list for relationships for ENTPs, but that's so much more complicated. You got the male and female perspective. For introverted sensors, it would be based on their background. For introverted intuitives, it would depend on, what their goals in life were. It's just a big mess. But today we're just going to talk about how compatible is an ENTP, friendship-wise, with the other personalities. As a side note, I would say that an ENTP should be able to get along with all the other personalities with, little difficulty. I guess the question becomes how long will an ENTP put up with, another personality? I think that might be more appropriate because the ENTP is always going to be looking for, something new. So how long is the ENTP going to hold their attention for this other personality type, I think is also a good one. I don't really know. Let's just get into it. I think we're going to start with the S's first. ESTP. I have never met an ESTP I didn't get along with. I have actually spent several hours with ESTPs in the same, room. So I mean that's really good. We're gonna say that ESTPs go up as S tier here. I imagine it has something to do with the introverted thinking being in the same position. It's that same level of skepticism and follow through in the thought. Ooh, ISTJs. Ooh. So I think the problem that most ENTPs are going to have with an ISTJ, if they're comfortable with you, they're going to be talking about their day, often in great detail. And unless you're, going to tell me about how you slayed a dragon or you were able to perform actual magic, I'm not going to be all that interested. And as they preference extroverted thinking rather than introverted thinking, you're going to get that regurgitation of information that you've probably already heard about. Don't even bother trying to debate the subject. They don't do that. That's not something they do. So in terms of general compatibility, the ISTJ is nearly as far from compatible as we can get. Oh, ESFP. Yeah, no, that goes right here. That's for the typical ESFP, they have a matter of seconds before I'm done with them. I should have put an F tier here for this one. The only time I'll willingly sit around an ESFP and listen to them, babble on about whatever, is if I found them physically attractive. And now that I'm older, I just, I avoid them altogether, typically. All right, next up we have the ISTP. They're very similar to the ESTP, obviously. I do enjoy their company. They're usually on the move, though, so you never really get to spend a whole lot of time with them, unless, of course, they like you. But like you. You get the A spot. ISFPs. I love ISFPs. Just the most perfect of companions, right? You say stuff, they'll just nod their head and agree. That's kind of their thing. Generally just very pleasant people. I need an ISFP sidekick. They make great sounding boards. All right, next up we have the ISFJ. Now the ISFJ has a very, 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 very special place in this spot here where my heart used to be. They share nearly the same level of cynicism as your typical ENTP would. Their psyches are constantly being reinforced with how terrible the average human being is, from the introverted sensing, of course, and always having to deal with them in a cooperative manner can be very taxing. So over several years, what you're left with is a very misanthropic human being. If you can get an ISFJ to open up and tell you about how they personally feel about how crappy every other human being is, it's actually pretty entertaining. And I have been in cars with ISFJs for at least an hour, so we're gonna put them up there in A. ESFJs. I absolutely get along with ESFJs. The problem is that once they feel like you've gotten comfortable with them, which for that usually takes about 30 minutes or so, they start wanting to rope you into shit. Just no. I don't want to meet one of your 3 daughters. I don't want to help you set up a fundraiser. So, pleasant and tolerable, it's just that they want to keep pulling you into stuff that you absolutely don't want to commit to. So ESFJs get to go into a B. And the last of the S's we have ESTJ. There are a few exceptions to ESTJs that I would probably like to spend all day with. One of them, of course, is Raymond Reddington from The Blacklist. He would have so many fascinating, awful stories. He would know the best places to get food. He could tell you about how the shady underbelly, works. He seems like just a very fascinating character to want to be around. Unfortunately, he's not real, so, your typical ESTJ, for me anyway, it would be like a grandpa. kind of character, and they just love to tell those stories about how they had to walk uphill to school every morning in the snow, and they always do their best to reach out and get you so that they can sit you down in front of them for 2 hours so they can ramble on about what life was like back in the 60s. Like, I'll sit there out of love, but I don't want to be there. So the ESTJ is going to get thrown into C, only because they might have something interesting to talk about. Just, you don't want to be around them for longer than like 20 minutes before they, ask you about painting their shed. All right, so all the S's are done, and we have, of course, the intuitives. This is most certainly the part that's going to get me a lot of hate. Oh no, we are definitely saving INFJ for last. They're not doing it right now. So my brother, being an INTJ, I can have and will continue to spend as many hours of my day with him as humanly possible. That's not going to be the typical ENTP response to that personality. I have a great deal of love for my brother, and so that's why we spend so much time together. For the typical ENTP and an INTJ, they're going to be way lower on the list because the INTJ is going to argue with you a fair amount. Now, of course, the ENTP enjoys the arguments, so they're not going to be down in D tier. So the amount of time you're normally going to want to spend around them, they kind of redeem themselves with the thinking aspect. Although it's extroverted, they're still typically very logical people. So I mean, it's somewhere in the A to B. For compatibility, we'll say that if you're really trying to flex that extroverted feeling, you're probably going to be able to spend a good amount of time with them, probably hours. So we're going to throw the INTJ up into the A slot. But if you find that INTJ is using a little too much introverted feeling, you're going to end up throwing them right down there. And so it really depends on you. So for me, I'm a little bit older, so I can deal with them a lot better. And so we're going to go with A. ENTJs. I have at least confirmed one case of ENTJ in my life. He was about in his mid to late 40s. Very tall. Very, very, very tall. He was like the owner of some Xerox franchise that I was working at. Industrial tier Xerox stuff. He would avoid me nearly at all costs. When I heard him speak for the first time, I actually stopped what I was doing and turned to observe him, and I think he took notice of that. Typical ENTP, the ENTJ is going to reek of psychopath, like actual psychopath. Unfeeling, hyper ambitious. The ENTJ typically views other people as stepping stones to get them further up someplace. And so I think once he realized that I knew what he was, he just didn't want anything to do with me. He would actually send other people to come give me messages about things, which is really too bad. I find psychopathy rather fascinating. I'm always hoping that I can figure out how to flip a switch in my head so that I don't have to feel anything ever. I'm still working on it. It's not there yet. But in terms of general compatibility, the ENTP and an ENTJ, I mean, they're just not going to have a lot in common. They share no strong preference and function, and they'll probably do whatever they can to use the ENTP in whatever way that they feel they can. So you're probably gonna put that down here in terms of compatibility. Yes, INTPs. One of my good friends is actually an INTP. Go figure. I can definitely at least hang around him for an hour. He usually comes to me once a week, spits out a random factoid. This person died, this new fighter jet model was released, or my favorite one, hey Street Urchin, you want to start a VTube channel? I barely know what that even is. So he's very fun for short bursts of time, but then his Asperger starts kicking in, it can get a little awkward. So I mean, I definitely put INTP up in the A tier for sure. Oh boy, INFPs. For the novelty of meeting a brand new INFP, you'll probably end up spending a fair amount of time with them. But after a while, you end up saying the phrase, well, that's not how that works, one too many times. You start poking plot holes in their stories. You can't help it as an ENTP. The extroverted intuition that they utilize is still refreshing because you don't meet a lot of people that preference or that have a stronger preference for extroverted intuition. So I'm going to say that for an INFP, I'd say at least a B. I think B is probably fine. It's fun to, poke holes and pull string. It can provide several minutes worth of entertainment, absolutely. ENTP, of course, is a no-brainer. ENTPs, of course, hate each other 100%. That's a joke, obviously. I've met 2 other ENTPs my whole life. Just wonderful amazing people. You can just sit there and talk for hours and hours and hours about random ideas, the logic behind them. It's a great time. If you're an ENTP and you find another one, make sure you hold on to them. ENFJs, the succubus. The ENFJ, I think, prides itself on being compatible with everyone, typically. So with the one ENFJ I've met, you'll have to resist wanting to spend more time around them. But remember, they want to, hold on to you so they can chew you up and then, spit you out. Much like the ENTJ, they're always looking to move up. The ENTJ is looking to move up through more objective means, higher levels of authority, making more money. The ENFJ is looking more for using you to get a little more notoriety. They want to be more known. They want to know that they've got more people in their thrall. And it's not just a simple matter of saying, oh, that's an ENFJ, I better be careful. They have already spent many years of dealing with people that try to distance themselves from the ENFJ. They've already figured out ways to just try to reel you back in. It's actually very impressive. In terms of the actual compatibility, friendship-wise, that sort of thing, you're probably going to keep them around a B, roughly, in that area. They're just, with that introverted intuition, they're very focused on themselves. And if they're focused in you, it's because they want to use, they see something they can use in you for themselves. This list is not turning out like I thought it would. So ENFP is next. My father and one of my brothers is, of course, ENFP. I generally enjoy spending time around them. They have all these great and wonderful ideas and perspectives, but from a different, further perspective of their own personal feelings on the subject, and that has made for some very interesting conversation. They're a little more analytical with their feelings, and so that's easier for me to digest when in conversation. I could spend all day, and in fact, I have actually spent car rides with them and didn't really get all that irritated by their presence. So ENFP goes right up there to S. So last but not least, we have the INFJ. I have met one INFJ my whole life. I can't even sift through my terrible memory and think of any person that I had met that even really fits the description of an actual INFJ. Met a lot of INFPs that believed they were INFJ. I've only really met the one. In a complete friendship-like situation with an INFJ. They can hold a conversation about most things, but as an ENTP, you're gonna get bored of that. The INFJ is really locked into their ambitions and goals and plans for life. And an ENTP isn't always asking about what other people are doing with their life. But I think that personally, the INFJ is going to have to take the middle of the road spot for compatibility. They just have their way of living life, and the ENTP has their own way of living life, and they just don't mesh all that well together. All right, so the top row, we've got, party guy, ESTP, the ISFP companion, someone to possibly debate with in the ENTP, and then, of course, the more analytical feeler, ENFP. For the A row, we've got 3 introverted thinkers, and then just the 1 extroverted thinker. And we've got 3 introverted thinkers again, and then 1 extroverted thinker. And then just, ESTJ and C tier, the grandpa personality. And then 3 extroverted thinkers in D. So that's the ENTP personality compatibility list, I guess. I think this list more represents how well an ENTP will get along with the other personalities. It doesn't mean that an ENTP can't get along with an ENTJ, for example, but I think it's a matter of, in some cases, the ENTP will enjoy it rather than just tolerate it. So for S tier, it's high levels of tolerance. For D, it's very low level of tolerance. All right, so that's the end of my first tier list video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to hit that like button. For me, this was actually kind of fun. I definitely want to do a tier list for the romantic compatibility of an ENTP, and no one's gonna like that, not at all. If you're looking to see some more honest MBTI content, I invite you to hit that subscribe button. And if you feel like helping the street urchins stay off the streets, you should go check out my Patreon. And that's all the time I've got for today. I'll catch you next time. Bye!